Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment of Health Professional Radio. In this segment, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Paul Weinberg. He's joining us here as a retired ER doctor to talk about his new book, ER Doctor, Tales of an Emergency Room Doctor. He's going to provide an insight look at what it's like to work in the ER. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Dr. Weinberg.
Thank you for having me, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, what was it that brought you to the ER? Was that your interest when you went into medicine, or did something happen to bring you to become an ER doctor?
Well, becoming an ER doctor turned out to be a great career for me. I entered medical school thinking I was going to become an internist, a kind of learned academic kind of practice, a white shoe practice, as it were. But as I went through all the different specialties, I was captured by the power and excitement of being an emergency medicine physician. You're the point of the spear in delivering health care. You're kind of like a Navy SEAL where you go in, you get the job done, and then other folks will take care of the cleanup. You get to save a lot of lives, and it turned out to be a very rewarding career for me.
Now, that career spans more than 30 years working in ER rooms. You've witnessed quite a bit, everything from birth, deaths, injuries, illnesses, minor injuries, traumatic injuries. Was there one story or one situation from your time in the ER that kind of compelled you to write ER Doctor?
There are many great cases. I had many great cases, but it was the cumulative experience of seeing broadly human natural history passing under my hands that encouraged me to write this. I had seen so much. I wanted to share it with the general public. I wanted to release some of the things that I had seen through writing, and I wanted to share the experience with my daughters and family. And that's how this book came about.
The last couple of years have been pretty hard. I want to say come through a pandemic, even though that pandemic isn't over quite yet. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted emergency medicine? ER doctors, were they able to adapt quicker than maybe some other people in the medical community because of their close proximity to the action?
The COVID-19, the epidemic, and the large number of people who overwhelmed the healthcare system forced emergency medicines to be a reactive team. Generally, urban emergency rooms and even rural emergency departments are just about at capacity. And with the surge of ill people and severely ill people, it was overwhelming. And it took a while for the system to recreate what was necessary in order to deliver health care to very, very ill people in a quick and efficient manner. And for the practitioners, it was very hard. It was very hard. They were overwhelmed and faced serious and dying patients all too often.
You mentioned both urban and rural hospitals, ERs being overwhelmed. Do the ERs in these two communities differ greatly, or are they similar, urban versus rural areas?
I think in general, directed a little bit more towards emergencies. It's so inconvenient for rural people to go to the departments that don't show up as easily for smaller problems. Urban people treat emergency departments in a more casual manner overall. And broadly speaking, farmers and ranchers are sort of tougher to be able to handle more physical discomfort and illness than most urban people. That's a generalization that I think is kind of true.
Would you say that those folks, are the tougher folks, might be a little bit difficult to treat as opposed to some of the other less tough patients? Who are the most difficult patients to treat, and why would you say so?
When you take care of an ill rancher or farmer, they are really hurting, and they'll be very glad to receive the care. They're very serious, and that's how it is with anyone who's really severe and hurting and not doing well. but the threshold for showing up in the emergency department is way lower in an urban area. People who have been seen, say, within just a couple of days, return for a second and sometimes third opinion in the emergency departments for their chest pain or for their abdominal pain. And there's a redundancy in seeking care that you don't find in a rural area. And that's the people are more. It's different populations. It's only the folks who are really ill.
Now, it's my understanding that you're a father as well. Does being an ER doctor kind of impact your parenting style in any way?
Yes, it did. I see in lots of things. I have two grown daughters, and my daughters were little. I was sure to keep their immunizations current, and I think, a little bit extra worried about all the minor trauma that the kids could get into. From riding bicycles and having their feet caught in the spokes to being extra concerned about drowning or getting cut with blades. I had a little bit of extra stress, and as they matured, those concerns became normal.
In Chapter 8 of your book, Caring for Children, you talk about a specific case that was especially traumatic for you as the attending physician. Would you like to talk about that case?
Oh, I think that was a case where a mother accidentally, in giving the child medicine, pushed a piece of plastic into the voice box, and it blocked the ability of the child to breathe to the extent that the child was turning blue and then gray and really dying, truly dying. And fortunately, I was able to retrieve that blocking piece of plastic without having to cut a surgical airway. And once I removed that piece of plastic, the child very well. But the proximity of this child to death and the preventable nature of the illness were very hard. I was wiped out. I was wiped out after that.
Is there any advice that you have for those needing to visit the ER? And then let us know where listeners can find out more about you and your book.
If you're going to the emergency department, bring warm clothing, bring some food, bring some water, bring a charged cell phone, bring enough clothing so you're not too cold, make yourself comfortable, prepare everyone for a fairly long wait. It's going to take longer than you think. And I would bring a mask if you have to sit if you're going to be sitting in the waiting room. Those are my suggestions. And prevention is the best plan. I created a website, ER Doc Tips, that has more of my life and stories in it, and links to the book that you mentioned in the beginning, ER Doctor, Tales of an Emergency Room Doctor, and they can contact me through that site if they like for further discussion or information.
And again, that's www.erdoctips.com. That's ERDOCTIPS.com, correct?
That's correct.
Dr. Weinberg, I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio.
Thank you very much, Neil. Pleasure chatting with you. Have a good one.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Dr. Paul Weinberg. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download at Anchor, Spotify, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.